Hello, this is Jessica. I am here with Lisa from Rooftop Ministries. Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Lisa Wooley. I'm the Executive Director of Rooftop and have been the Executive Director at this stage for about 2 years. But I was on the original board 13 years ago and served as board chair and interim exec briefly about 7 years ago.
Awesome.
So I have good history with Rooftop.
Awesome. Could you tell me how Rooftop got started and what y'all do?
So Rooftop was started by a man named Bill Koch, and he is a member at Christ Cathedral downtown. And someone came in looking for rental assistance, and he didn't know exactly who to send them to, and started doing a lot of research and realized that there weren't a lot of resources for people needing rental assistance within our community, and that people were going from church to church to church, and churches didn't always have staff to deal with that. They also didn't have any way of knowing who was in legitimate need and who was just walking from church to church. And if one church assisted and another church assisted and one family got, every church is not free, but several churches budget for that month, then how did we make sure that the need was really being addressed? So he called together a group, sort of the West End Quarter churches, and started asking the questions, and then brought in some local experts. And there was a decision made that there really was a need and it needed to be addressed, and Rooftop was formed from that need. So Rooftop really works with people who are already housed, and it's the people in our community who are experiencing normally a one-time financial hardship and are otherwise sustainable. So research shows us that about 48% of Americans do not have $400 saved up for an emergency. That's sort of our demographic. That really is our demographic. If it is a long-term chronic type issue that requires wraparound services, we do a lot of referring to other organizations and try, if a client is willing, to get folks connected with those organizations, because we don't do wraparound services. Instead, we're just that bridge for people who don't really need wraparound services. We always clear the balance to zero, and so it really is a solution grant versus a partial grant for something, and that's where we choose to invest the funds. Today, in today's world, it's a little different. We usually say that we have to see sustainability going forward, and now it's a reasonable expectation of sustainability going forward, because people can be doing everything that they know to do and still not have access to their job right now, or resources for their rent. So, long answer.
Oh, that's good. So how have y'all been able to adapt, or how have y'all had to adapt during this time?
We had to go remote. We operate out of First Baptist downtown. They have graciously given us space. We're not connected with the church as far as a ministry of the church. They simply allow us, a Sunday school classroom is what they allow us. And all four of us are in that same room. And then when we meet with clients, which we used to do, a part of our process was we would do a face-to-face interview with clients, and that we would hold in another room. But so really, we couldn't all be in one room together, and we still can't. We do not see clients face-to-face right now, and won't through 2020, I'm fairly certain. the church is still primarily shut down, so we don't really have access to our room, with the exception of going up and grabbing supplies. If I turn this computer around, my entire kitchen table is nothing but supplies. Which is the way it is. But we went remote. We had to do an online application, which we didn't have before. We're working on database switching. We closed down the database that we normally use because it crashed in October, and we were looking at solutions. We didn't have time to find what the best solution was. We had to go with something, and United Way, we use Charity Tracker, which is a database that is shared with all the financial assistance groups, and we've realized that it really can operate as our sole database. So we'll be exporting and importing our data. That's a little more complicated. Anybody who does that knows it takes a little while to figure all that out. So we're in the process of doing that and figuring out what a cost would be. But there's been cost to going remote. But we're all working remote. It's working. We do staff meeting every day, and so that's been what we've had to do. And I have no idea when we'll go back and what it'll look like. Did you ask about funding too, or just?
You can talk about it.
We've been really lucky as a nonprofit. A lot of nonprofits have really struggled during this time. We, at the moment, are not struggling because we've been able to, we have good standing in the community. One of the things I'm sending out is to let our partners know how much we appreciate the groundwork that's been done. Because of all the work that's been done in the past and the support that we have and the reputation we have in the community, we were reached out to by Community Foundation and by United Way to be recipients of some of the grant funding that has flowed into the community. So we have been on the ground for tornado assistance, and we've been on the ground for COVID assistance with rent and mortgage. Brentwood United Methodist gave an additional $6,000 that was raised through your congregation for tornado, and that is part of our tornado funding. Our first phase, and I wrote this to your mission team, but the first phase really focused on people whose jobs were destroyed, like wherever they worked was destroyed by the tornado. And then COVID came soon on the heels, and that was devastating for so many people. And then our second kind of phasing of funding, what we're learning from there's a whole committee that's dealing with the tornado, is that people who were displaced and had FEMA funds and Red Cross funds, those funds are running out. And now they need assistance in either getting into a permanent location or kind of staying in that permanent location, because people are having to replace everything. A lot of people are, or a good portion of their stuff. And then they don't have childcare because of COVID, or their jobs aren't as consistent because of COVID. And then we have some folks whose apartments were destroyed in the tornado or needed repairs. Landlords have gone in and repaired and been in temporary housing. It's time to move back, and rents are going up between the property tax increase and the fact that now their apartments probably look better than they did before. Landlords are charging higher rents, and these folks can't afford them. And so they're having to find different places to live. And so that's requiring deposits. And anyways, that's where that's the space we're in right now with tornado. And there is more money available when we run out. We've got about $26,000 left in our tornado funding, and there is some available that we could go back and ask for more. COVID, we've given out, as of June, I have this here, hold on, we have given out $181,022. That represents 156 households, not people, but households. And sometimes that's been more than 1 month, or people have come back. Or sometimes it's like 4 roommates in a house. There's been a lot of that. But we've got about, well, no, we don't. At the time that I was doing my thing, we had about 22,000. We're about to run out of all that. CARES Act money is now coming into the community. It's confusing, and there's lots of different ways of getting it, but we're in conversations to apply for CARES Act money to continue that work. Where it gets scary for us is 2021. If we don't have our regular, like our church grants and our regular funding grants that get sucked up into these special grants, then 2021 starts looking very, very lean and what we're able to accomplish. The board and staff of Rooftop in the past, we've been blessed with some grants and things that have allowed us to basically save. Like, we raised money in 2020, 2021. We made, for the year coming up. So we had our budget, our normal budget for 2020. And we've been given grants to deal with the extreme circumstances. If we don't get additional granting for the extreme circumstances, we just kind of have to go back to what we were. But we can manage that in 2020. Where we get nervous is, what does 2021 look like? And I think everybody's in the same boat with that.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of our situation.
Yeah. You touched on this a little bit, but where have y'all seen God's provision during this time?
For me, the first and foremost, and this is probably because I was on the founding board, but the foundation that is in place for Rooftop, the reason the call came, the reason we responded originally has not changed, but has become highlighted dramatically, especially this year. That I call them pandemic positives. I think this time is allowing us an opportunity to reimagine a lot of things in the church, in our community. One of the things that I have been hit over the head with, and it's been coming, but is just really prevalent right now, is we like to go in and be the solution. I think churches have had that mentality. I think nonprofits have had that mentality, where we come up with a program that we think we know what will work for you, and we're going to come in and be that solution. And I'm doing a lot of reading, a lot of research, and a lot of discussing about flipping that, and what does it look like to be a partner and to walk alongside someone in partnership. First Baptist, where we're located, has torn down one of their buildings and they're rebuilding. And the old section, they really want to have some kind of hub of financial assistance. We're talking about that. We're thinking about what that would look like. Rooftop came out of congregations, but we don't require anything of our clients. So those of us who do it because, or at least for me, I feel called to do it, but I don't, there's nothing that our clients are required to do. And yet we're in a church, and so we do if people ask, I'll pray with them. If they, so we kind of have this hybrid going on where we're, and as we move forward, I want to think about how we partner. And I think for me, this time is just a time. I mean, we're incredibly busy. We're probably busier than we've ever been before. And yet, how do we also take this time to reimagine what are we being as effective as we can? And if we're going to do something different, is it, what's the motivation behind it? And where does that lead us? And I'm constantly drawn back to the scripture, and especially the Old Testament, where you've got the plagues, and I was like, if I was an Old Testament writer right now, my goodness. And so it's sort of like, well, okay, take this time and really ponder what could God be calling us to do in this time and place, in this space that looks different. And as we're exploring different ways of being, can we do that through the eyes of the Spirit leading us versus just in response to what a federal government grant may look like? So
it's a good answer. I like that.
I'm long-winded.
You're fine. So do you have any stories of transformation you could share?
From clients?
Sure.
Or, I mean, we don't get to spend a lot of time with people because we're generally assisting once. In this particular situation, sometimes we're assisting more than once. But it's fun how you still kind of get to know people. And so, yes, like in the tornado, East Nashville was like that 5 points area was just leveled. And hair salon was totally destroyed. And we assisted every single employee in that hair salon. And because one of our caseworkers lives right beside the salon, she knows some of the folks. And so, like, babies have been born. And I mean, we get to hear about it, which is kind of cool. And these are people that you and I, those kind of people who were normally, making it, and their lives just got ripped apart. I'm trying to think. We have lots, I mean, just personalities bubble up where you've got people who really truly doing everything they know to do. And a lot of times what we're able to do is provide guidance and education, and so people can advocate for themselves. Like, we'll have people who have gone to their landlord and said, but you can't evict me because of the CARES Act. And I think maybe there's been a mistake. And sometimes we'll talk about how you might advocate for yourself. And then they'll come back and go, oh, guess what? I don't owe this much anymore. I only owe this much, and I can handle this. We've also done a lot of really interesting work with other nonprofits, where this is in a time where we normally work together anyway, but now everybody's like in the same boat. And so there's a lot of push in this community for collaboration, which for me could be really transformative in this community. We tend to silo ourselves, and we also have egos where we think that our groups are the best or something, do it the best way. And when we can shed that skin and it becomes about the community, That's exciting to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how can Brentwood UMC be in support during this time?
Um, you've helped with additional funding. That's huge. We don't have a lot of volunteer opportunities right now. That's the nature of our beast. As we were seeing people, we flipped last year, and instead of seeing clients one-on-one, we were seeing clients during windows. We would have a window, a morning time and an afternoon time, and you could choose in that week to come either morning or afternoon, and you didn't have to tell us, you just came. That allowed the bus schedules to be a little more flexible, and people could get their documentation together on their own time frame. It just reduced some barriers, and it really worked. Plus, we learned when people sat with other people that were seeking assistance, they tended to understand that they weren't the only ones, and that was helpful both in just attitude, but also understanding that we don't have unlimited funds and we can't help absolutely everyone every time, because sometimes people would get really angry. And we could also provide resources, and we had a resource table, and people just saw things differently. And we were inviting people to come because we're at the church and there's a daycare. Y'all would understand this. We had to walk people up to where we were and back. And so we had hosts, and that was wonderful. And so when we get back to that, we would love, love, love to see more of our congregations. If people have time, it's super easy, almost kind of boring, but you get a chance to sit and talk to people, and it's really helpful for us. And then you also get a chance to see who we are and what we're doing. We do have, we're working on a committee right now for a virtual event that we want to have happen in the fall at some point in time. We were going to do an event this year, and of course that's all been changed up. So if somebody's really into that and wants to be a part of that committee and wants to help with that, we would certainly love to have them. We are also recruiting for our board, and if somebody's interested in being on the board, even if we fill up this class, eventually we would love to have someone from Brentwood can be on our board at some point in time. We're not a huge board, but we're sort of a working board. I mean, there's things that we really need. But as far as volunteer type stuff, we don't have that much right now. Because all we're doing is giving out money. If there's somebody who's really great at social media or graphic design that wants to help edit and work on content with me, I would not say no. Would not say no at all. And frankly, to be honest, just the financial support, continued financial support, if the congregation is able, is huge. It's huge because it allows us not to stumble.
All right. So how can we be in prayer specifically for Rooftop and the people served?
I would ask you to be in prayer for our board and our staff, especially our staff. Everybody knows working from home is very different. You are hearing sad stories every day. People are desperate, and they're desperate in a way that they haven't been desperate before. And it is taxing, and it is hard to be present to each person that you pick up the phone and talk to, and kind and compassionate. And we work on that. We work on our wording. We work on that every single person is treated as a child of God, that they're treated with human decency, no matter what the situation is or the story that they're telling. And that's taxing on our staff. And when you're stuck in your house, and we have 2 caseworkers and 1 person who's helping us a little bit on the side, but both of our caseworkers are young, living in very small homes with their spouse and one with a newborn. And it's crowded, and so we work on mental health too to keep. So I would say pray for our staff. It's hard work, and pray for our clientele, which you all are probably, you're doing because you're praying for the community. It's a struggle for folks right now, all for everyone, for our nation, for it's just hard. And so much of what our response is contingent on what happens, like how the government responds, and how, whether it be federal government or state government or local government, as things are opening and closing, as schools are opening and closing, as the unknown is there. People who are on the edge are being pulled and pushed in so many different directions. And so just to pray for them and to pray for the leaders who are making decisions, because they're not easy decisions, and no decision is completely right or completely wrong. But it impacts somebody.
Yeah.
So
that was the last specific question I had. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
We are grateful for you all. Very, very grateful. I know you all sit on the edge of Williamson County and Davidson County, and you're still technically in Williamson County, and right now we don't assist in Williamson County. But although we do for tornado, if somebody is moving into a county beyond Davidson County, we have permission to make that happen. If that's what's affordable, we've moved. Probably it's not going to come into Williamson County, but maybe with the property tax increase, it'd be interesting to see what happens with apartments, with rents versus Williamson versus Davidson. Mm-hmm. Rents are going up in Davidson County, interestingly enough, because of property tax increase. And rents didn't have, they're already unaffordable. So that'll be interesting. But we are very grateful for your presence and for your assistance. And are always happy to talk and to partner with when you have families in need that are either a part of your congregation or a part of the folks that just walk in and need assistance. We're small, so we respond to email and phone calls and are happy to work with folks. And we also don't have as much red tape, so we can be flexible.
Gotcha. Well, y'all are doing great work in the community.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to ask. It is good to communicate. We will be having a Zoom meeting, I think in August, with our partner congregations to hear about your response to COVID, our response to COVID and tornado, and just what's going on in the world, and how we can jointly continue to address the need. So anybody who, that'll go out to your contacts at the church, so Toy King will get it, but anybody who wants to be on that call is welcome to be.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for meeting with me today.
You're so welcome. Enjoy your summer.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Do you get to go back to school?
It's up in the air.